Last week's announcement of the Boltyn Armory deck coming this July has renewed a lot of interest around the Light Warrior. So here with me today to chat all things Boltyn is Spencer Heaps, one of the leading Boltyn players in the Portland area. We cover why Boltyn, the new spoilers, and Boltyn's challenges. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. So with the recent announcement of the Boltyn Armory deck that caught many of us by surprise, there's some renewed interest in our Light Warrior. And who better to come in and talk to us about Sir Boltyn himself than Spencer Heaps. Spencer, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Yeah, super excited to be here, talk about Boltyn, my absolute favorite hero. Couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, so a little background of how I know Spencer. Spencer has run Boltyn at least the RTN and the ProQuest season this year very consistently. The RTN season you were on a hot streak Boltyn, which I thought was really cool. And then I think you've got some flex builds in there, but I know that you're going to walk us through this. So I'm super excited to get your takes on it. So, but first, can you give everyone kind of an info who you are, what your background with Flesh and Blood is?
Yeah. So again, my name's Spencer. A lot of locals in the PDX area, especially at the store where I go to my most armories, know me as Stuart. But Spencer to most people. I've
What's
been
the
playing
story
Flesh and
there?
Blood. Yeah, at the very first LGS that me and my closest friends played at, there was a great guy, older gentleman named Eric, who was playing the game with us. And the first month or so that we all were playing armories together, he thought my name was Stuart,
Okay.
and just about nobody noticed until like we finally get paired into each other at an armory, and he goes, "Who's Spencer?" And everybody, is like, "That's Spencer," and no, that's Stuart, and everybody just starts giving him a bunch of crap for it. So yeah, that's the story behind Stuart. So a lot of the people that I kind of started playing Flesh and Blood with there know me as Stuart, and it's kind of trickled into some other other mutual friends through the game. So
Well, that's a great story, and it speaks a lot to LGS culture
oh,
and why we play
absolutely.
these games in person. But
Yeah, yeah, it's
anyway,
something
we
I kind
we
of
we
I
cut you
love it.
off. So what is your? Please continue with your background.
Yeah, so I've been playing Flesh and Blood for coming up on 3 years now. Just kind of in that in between Monarch and Aria is when I started picking up and playing the game. Um, I absolutely love the game. My very first hero was Azalea, and Azalea was not much of a hero back then, and I didn't really know that because I was just barely picking up the game. Um, and with the release of Aria, I kind of found myself wanting to play Lexi, the better ranger at that time, and kind of through the rest of Lexi's existence. I loved playing Lexi. I played like an Ice Lexi deck through the Starvo meta and up until Outsiders came out, and I loved playing that deck. Um, I liked playing Lexi after Outsiders released too, but it lost some of the flair that I really liked, and with some of the bans like Amulet of Ice that happened back then. Um, but just before Aria came out, the store I was playing at, we did a sealed event for Monarch. None of the people who played there had done sealed Flesh and Blood before. The pre-release for Aria was coming up, and we wanted to just kind of see how the format felt.
Mhm.
Um, that armory, I ended up going 3-0 with my sealed Boltyn deck. And the very first time I'd played Boltyn, I hadn't even like played the Blitz deck, even though I owned it. And I was like, yeah, this feels good. Like I really like playing this hero. So I built him and I put him together, but he still didn't quite have the legs that he needed. And Lexi had just came out, and I was really into that as well. So Boltyn kind of went on the back burner, and was kind of the pet deck for a little bit. Um, but then eventually, with the release of Dusk Till Dawn and Lexi leaving the format, I was like, yeah, I think it's Boltyn's time, and time for me to really, put in the hours on Boltyn. Uh, yeah, that's kind of the background in Flesh and Blood that eventually led me to Boltyn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love playing this game, and I'm really excited to play it for as long as I can, as long as I can, as long as the game exists.
Well, that's going to be, I believe, a very long time.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah, so you already kind of answered my next question, which is why Boltyn. But let me
Mm,
kind of flip the question on you a little bit. And I'm putting a lot of my own emotion into this. I really was into Boltyn. Like I was
mhm,
full on into Boltyn when he dropped, and I just got super frustrated because I couldn't get him to
mm.
work. The
Sure,
card disadvantage really hurt him. So, what was it about him that made you stick with him,
sure.
and or brought him back? Or I mean, I realize Lexi going away is what brought you
Mhm.
back, but you could have
All good.
bailed at that point. So, what was it that made you want to stick with Boltyn?
Yeah. One of the and I'll kind of answer the why Bolton for like in this, like why I think maybe everyone should play Bolton, or at the very least why I think he's a great choice like for a new player. Warrior is such a great class. Ignoring Light Warrior so far, I think Warrior is such a fantastically designed class, and the it's especially a great class both playing against it and playing as it for learning the intricacies of the way combat and the way attacks work in Flesh and Blood. Attack, defense, attack reactions, defense reactions. And like I love the attack reaction and defense reaction design space of Flesh and Blood. It's like that's the most exciting part of the combat of a chain link for me is any attack reactions and the pause of am I getting pummeled? Am I getting Iron Song response? Am I getting routed? And then the pause of defense reactions. Are you about to play Steel Blade Shunt? That's going to kill me 1 HP. And which is how I won my very first armory was a Steel Blade Shunt on an Anathos. I was like, uh, other than that sealed event. And so I think that's like that space of the game is so interesting. Um, and so the Light Warrior class gets to do all that, but it also gets to add in the layer of the game that's about like attack action cards. And while Dory is more about just swinging the weapon, and you kind of get the mix of both with Boltyn. So you kind of get to hit all aspects of a chain link and of the combat chain with Boltyn. And so that's something that just like really drew me to the class and to Boltyn especially is that reaction space of the game, while also getting to throw down these take flights and these cards with like beautiful art.
Hmm.
I back in the days where I played like World of Warcraft and stuff like that, I was always like, oh, Paladin. Yep, I'm choosing Paladin. I've always loved that Paladin, that light warrior aesthetic of fantasy. So it really drew me to that. And then like Raiden, Raiden is like a freaking lightsaber. It's so cool. And it's beautiful in cold foil. And it took me way too long to get a cold foil Raiden. But yeah, I think like just the class fantasy of Boltyn, the gameplay mechanics of Boltyn, have just really scratched that itch for me and what I'm looking for in the game. And having to charge is like a little bit of a man. I gotta pitch a card and I gotta charge a
Right.
card. Like that's was a bit of a hump to get over in terms of like, wow, I have to keep minimum like 3 to 4 cards to do anything. But then you kind of start seeing a little bit underneath the hood of how a Boltyn deck can function and like what the strengths it can play to, and peeling back that layer a little bit, and negating the IP penalty of charging.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah, Boltyn.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great, and we're definitely going to ping you on a lot of that strategy later on. But what I want to talk about now, because it's super exciting, is the armory deck.
Yeah.
Did
Mhm.
I didn't see this coming? Did you see it coming?
Yeah, I mean, I it was not something I was thinking of. Bolton, like, uh, sometimes it's easy to think of him as like a forgotten child, but at the end of the day, like, no, he got Warband from Bright Lights. He
Hmm.
got like a whole set in Dusk Till Dawn. Like, he flew. He was a little sad for a while, but he is no longer a forgotten child. So, um, yeah, not something I was really seeing coming, but very excited about it for sure.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, what's your take on are the armory decks becoming like the new super expansion slot? Is that kind of like how this is shaping up to be? Did they just like do a quick injection to a hero that needs it? Is I mean, that's certainly the vehicle they can use, right?
Yeah, I think an injection into a hero that needs it, or into a class that needs it,
Mm-hmm.
like whether it be maybe a whole new hero, like maybe we see the return of Briar or the return of Lexi in one of these products, which I think is a cool way to leverage it. The you know I don't think it could quite be said that it's like a proven a product that only goes to heroes that need it. Because Kayo, did we necessarily think
Yeah,
that
but I
Kayo
mean,
needed
they didn't
that much?
know. They didn't know at the time. But yeah,
Yeah,
fair enough. Fair
I'm
enough.
sure that that product was
Yeah.
in movement even before heavy hitters came out. But yeah, I think like it's a really exciting product space, the Armory deck, and I mean, hey, if they use it for heroes that one I like, and two I can bring a new player in and be like, hey, here's this Boltyn deck, like I know what I'm doing. And I'm going to teach you how to play this really well, so you can show up at your armory and win it, even with this $40 product.
Yeah.
Um,
Well said.
uh,
Well
yeah.
said. All right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and go through the spoilers. Now, there's a fun part of this for the folks watching. Uh, the third card was spoiled about
Mhm.
2 hours ago and
Yeah, yeah,
change
yeah.
at this point. And so anyway, we'll get to that. But one of the ones I think is probably the biggest one, and you can tell me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong, is Saving Grace. So the Saving Grace is a 3-drop defense, well, not 0-drop for defense for 3 defense reaction that you can just play, but you can also charge if you want. And it also says if you charge this turn, target attack gets -2, but keep in mind that you don't necessarily need to have charged off of this card. It doesn't say if charged this way. So it
Mhm.
works with Soul Bond Resolve and potentially other things. So what's your take on this one, and what's its place in the Boltyn arsenal?
Yeah, I think this is probably the most exciting card out of at least for me personally, just in terms of like usability. I think this card it could be a very easy three of in every archetype of Boltyn. Even the Boltyn decks that don't care so much about charging and like fueling their still want to have soul for those Lumina turns and for that free go again that they can get on their hot streaks and their sabers and such. Um, so a card I very definitely see fitting into essentially every archetype of Boltyn. I think like it fits all the boxes. It's a light card. It's a yellow card.
Mm-hmm.
It blocks for 3. It does it's very modular. It can fuel your soul if you want, or like you said, it can just be a block 3 if that's all you need it to be, or you can't afford to charge that card. And so very exciting card. And this card and the equipment that we've seen so far all function very strongly with Soul Bond Resolve, his chess piece, and adding another an extra point of defense whenever you charge. And if it's on your opponent's turn, which it will be if you're playing this card.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Soul Bond Resolve is a very interesting chess piece that kind of pushes Boltyn in a direction that not a lot of decks are trying to do, and because it's, to be honest, not quite strong enough. But with cards like this and the next couple cards we'll look at, I think are really exciting to kind of push that play style a little bit further forward.
Yeah, well set up. And I do actually want to ask you about Soul Bond Resolve a little later. So
Mhm.
don't let me
Sure.
forget that. Right, so next we have Warpath of Winged Grace. This is the leg
Mhm.
spot that we saw also out of the initial sale sheet. So this is a 2 blade break equipment, and when it defends, you may charge your soul, and if a yellow card is charged this way, create a take quicken token. So this is very specifically has to be charged on this defense,
Mhm.
but gives you that quicken, which Bolt of Courage and stuff like that. So
Sure.
what's your take on this one? And also, where does it fit within the Snappies play? What's your take?
Yeah, so I think this one will probably have the most contention within the Boltyn community in terms of like when should it come in? Is it better than snaps? Is it not? And I think this card is really exciting because I think that question of snaps or Warpath, and when, like, should they both be in the list? Should only one of them be in the list? I think that's the kind of question that can only be answered through play and through testing. Um, and which is really exciting to me. Another card to try out to see, like, is the value more than it seems on paper? Is it less than it seems on paper? Um, I think the an extra 2 life on your boots is not a lot of classes have access to that, and the ones that do, like Civic Steps probably being the best example.
Hmm.
Um, gives your opponent that quicken. Well, this is something that I'm getting 2 extra life and I'm benefiting my game plan. Um, while but it is taking the extra card out of your hand to do that charge. So yeah, I think this card is really interesting. I love the name Warpath of Winged Grace is like just such a cool like light warrior. I talked so much about how I love the aesthetic of light warriors and paladins and such, and this fits right in. Yeah, a card I'm very much expecting to see some debate about in the Boltyn community, which is exciting. And Yeah, really excited to try this one out. I hope one day I can get it in cold foil, but we'll see about that.
Yeah. Well, that is a fair point. I mean, if we follow the pattern of the Kayo deck, which again, that's only one data point, it would come in rainbow foil.
Right. Yeah. But we are getting the round the table products in cold foil as armory promos. So we'll see. Yeah, we're absolutely crossing fingers.
Fair enough. All right, now let's go to the next one, which we saw like 2.5 hours ago. So this is Helms of Halo's Grace. So there's definitely a theme. Note that for my next question of Grace equipment. So this is a head. When this defends, you may charge your hero soul. If a yellow card's charged this way, draw a card. Okay.
Right.
So we just got, or it feels like we just got Bologna, Warband of Bologna, right? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm excited about this headpiece, not necessarily like as a put it in every deck I have, but just as it's something we saw in the Kayo deck of the Majestic arms piece, that was a Majestic budget version of Apex Bonebreaker, created 2 mites with a different condition and such. While this is very similar to Bologna in the sense that it is charging your soul and you are refunding the card that you charge. You're drawing a card. And it blocks for 2. So I think like effects like this are very, very exciting in these, new player oriented products. Because one, it's giving you an option that isn't like, just markedly worse than the premier option, the legendary option. And it's giving a very easy path for these new players to be like, okay, so I have this piece of equipment, and this is what the upgrade is. And once I do get that upgrade, like it's not going to feel totally unfamiliar. Like I'm not going to have to adjust everything about the deck just because I'm going from this Majestic to this legendary. I'm going from this Majestic to this legendary with a similar and stronger effect, but still similar. And so the lines may feel similar, or the situations where you use it may feel similar. But overall, it's telling us that LSS, wants to make these products that are, still rewarding to these new players, and that aren't feeling like, the moment I buy this deck that everyone's telling me, well, you got to upgrade your headpiece to, the legendary, and then it becomes a real deck. Like this is absolutely going to serve a new player well with their armory. As opposed to Halo of Illumination, a light equipment that's not going to do too much for them. So I think it's really exciting.
Awesome, well said. So now the add-in question is, we now have 2 points. We like to draw straight lines between 2 points. So are we going to see an arms and a chest, a graceful arms and a graceful chest? It wouldn't be too hard to extrapolate that based on the tokens and stuff we have available, that the chest piece would create vigor, the arm piece would create probably courage, if we're going with the Boltyn versus might, probably courage. But
I think that would make my heart just so happy. Part of the fantasy of warrior in my mind is the equipment. Warrior, at least it used to be. It might be even now with like brutes and guardians and such, but I think warrior being the class that has access to the whether it be the strongest or just the most variety of equipment, in the same way that Ranger kind of has these like silver bullet arrows, I think Warrior being the class that has these silver bullet, equipment pieces
Hmm.
is like a really strong aspect of the class. So printing their first, armory deck for the Warrior with a full set of unique equipment, I think is a slam dunk, and something I'd be really excited to see. The especially like this equipment and these new cards, they function so well with Soul Bond Resolve.
Hmm.
So I think I don't think they're going to put Soul Bond
No.
Resolve in the deck, but I think like the the armory deck's like intended upgrade path is maybe into a soul bond
Hmm.
resolve focus list. I think that'd be really interesting. But a full suite of light warrior equipment armor in this product would be really cool. Would fit dead on with the fantasy of warrior. And there's not a lot of precedent for these products,
Right.
so like heck yeah, like yeah, they're gonna do it. And if they don't, well, maybe next time.
Yeah. So yeah. And to be fair, actually, the arms would actually be really strong. If it was a
Sure.
courage token, that would actually
Yeah.
be very strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it functioned very similarly to making a quicken.
Right.
'Cause that's kind of what a +1 counter equates to in Boltyn a lot of the time, and it's even more annoying to deal with than a quicken a lot of the times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing about this is they can go, and by this I mean this type of armor suite, is they can go pretty heavy, right? It's not, again, hard to assume that they'd go pretty heavy into some of the bannerets, right? Which also
Sure.
give you a bonus for charging. Seems fair. Again, we don't know how many M's and stuff will be in the deck, but it'd be nice to see courage in there. I think bannered courage, not bannered courage.
Yeah,
Is
we
that what
have
it's
Banner
called?
to Courage and Gallantry. Yeah. Courage
Yeah, the
is
one that
cool.
poops the courage. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. You knew what I was laying down. So
Yeah.
all right, fair enough. Well, lots. I mean, we could talk for hours on speculation, but that doesn't do anybody any good now, does it? So let's move into the meta chat. So, what are you playing today, and how does Boltyn fit into the overall meta? And let's go ahead and even forecast, right? What are your fears and hopes with the next set coming? Kind of just
Yeah.
toss you an open field.
Yeah, sure. So the Boltyn I've spent the most time on in this last ProQuest season and this last RTN season is one of the hybrid between Raiden and Saber's like OTK Lumina combo. Um, and I think the deck has grown in really interesting ways um, to adapt to this heavy hitters meta. Um, the and if you're not you in the audience aren't super familiar with Boltyn, the different archetypes that exist with Boltyn right now are a Raiden focused game plan, which is his majestic signature weapon. It gets +3 if you charge his turn, and it costs 0. Pretty cool. And that deck relies a little bit more on really powerful spike turns with via the Vanguard. You get your Tunic on 3, you get that via the Vanguard, or a combo piece with it in your arsenal, and just try to have the most powerful turn possible that grabs tempo in your favor. Or you could play the deck in a way that plays a little bit more turn to turn. You're a warrior. Most of your cards block 3. You're pretty powerful at blocking 9, arsenaling a card, setting up, or blocking 6, and having a strong 2-card hand with Demon Bravado. So Boltyn's, the way that he plays every single hand in a Raiden deck is very, very flexible. I think that deck is particularly strong into Guardians, which we see a fair amount of right now with Victor running around. And most of Guardians deck is attack actions other than like those block cards, and that interact with your hero text, which makes it a fairly good matchup. I think that deck is strong into like Assassin and these decks that kind of like to play a similar game to you, that like to use their cards to block, that don't utilize a full 4 or 5 card hand very well, and want to block with those cards, but they're giving you intrinsic value just by blocking with them. So Raiden is, I think, can be a very fun and versatile play style. On the other end of that spectrum, and it can exist within the same 80 cards, which I think is really, really cool, is the one turn kill Lumina combo with people call it like Saber's Boltyn. Because it used to be two Cintauri Sabers, but now it's typically one Hot Streak and one Cintauri Saber, but it's still Saber's Boltyn. That list relies a little bit more on this one huge combo turn that you are putting together. You're building some of that soul with your tools like Soul Shield and coming up Saving Grace, most likely. And you're arsenaling these power cards that let you find your Lumina Ascensions. And then you're throwing down a big, 30 damage turn as soon as you get the opportunity and get these cards. 30 damage, threatening, healing with and gaining soul on every single one. And it's really hard for just about every every deck in the game to deal with. And if that doesn't kill your opponent, well, typically now you've got 8, 10, 12 soul, and you're going to throw down your Celestial Cataclysms. You're going to throw down your Beacon of Victory for 12 and finish them off, which is, a really, Beacon for 12 is, there's no feeling like it.
Off of a free Raiden, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, you're at 1 and I'm swinging Raiden for 0. You better think real hard about that.
Yeah.
You better think real hard about it. So these lists, sometimes they exist separate from each other, and sometimes they exist within the same 80 cards. The version of Sabers that exists, separate from Raiden, we've been seeing get a little bit more popular lately. Michael Fung recently top-8'd Battle Hardened with that list, and I know several Boltyns in the community took these Saber-only lists to their local ProQuests and were able to, to get the win. So it's kind of going in a world of Kassais and Axe Dories and such. The dual-wield Boltyn is flying a little bit under the radar. And which I think is really interesting to see if any of these new cards and if this deck continues to grow in popularity, because the uniqueness that it has versus Kassai and Dory is it's able to do the regular Blade Runner, Blade Flurry kind of dual wield warrior things, but while it's doing that, it can set up that Lumina combo turn, which is a pretty interesting game plan.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Yeah. And the biggest adaptation to, I think, to the heavy hitters meta that's become more and more popular among Boltyn players that is within my list and has been since since I lost to Pankaj is Kassai at Gongai's RTN the previous RTN season is Oath of Steel. If you're not familiar with Oath of Steel, every time you attack with a weapon, you get a +1 counter on that weapon. So, and it costs 0. It's a red. It's a warrior card. These big Lumina combos and these Raiden lists have a really hard time sometimes finishing the game versus decks like Kassai and Dory. So this extra little spice called Oath of Steel, you put that in your deck and you start playing for this pitch stack game plan, where you get all 3 of your Luminas, and you get to play Oath of Steel while having Spirit of Irina out. That lets you play your Luminas as an instant. And instead of a 30 damage combo with 2 Luminas, you're looking at a 68 damage combo minimum. That really helps you go over the top of these heavily armored warriors. All their cards block 3. They have tons of defense reactions. They're never buffing your Raiden swing or anything because they don't run any attacks. So a really kind of interesting development in the Boltyn world. I think it's kind of given him the extra push he needs to really be successful in the next, in the coming weeks and in the coming events as this strategy gets more and more popularized. But there's also a lot of Boltyn like Raiden purists, and all respect to them who don't particularly enjoy playing the combo, and because it can be a little one note, especially if you're not doing the pitch stack game plan. I think he's kind of in an interesting space of like Raiden is now at the point where it's strong enough to win events on its own, which I think is awesome. But the combo does give you a few percentage points into some matchups that you otherwise might not have.
Mm-hmm. All right, so kind of changing the topic a little bit, but in the same vein, with some of the spoilers we've seen, if you compare Boltyn's history of getting cards versus a lot of the other classes, or even some of the warriors within the warrior, some of the other heroes within the warrior class, Boltyn's cards always seem just a tad held back.
Mm.
So do you think, is LSS scared of Boltyn, right? Is the ability to just use his soul as a storage mechanic, is that frightening to them? And is that why he hasn't got anything super busted yet? What's your feeling on the matter?
Yeah, I think I think that's a great question. You look at Bolt of Courage, and it's red Bolt of Courage, 0 for 3, and to have any effect, you have to spend a whole card into your soul. That doesn't read very well.
Mm-hmm.
Or Take Flight, 1 for 4. You have to pitch to play it. You have to charge a card to get the go again. Uh, you're spending 3 cards: the pitch, the Take Flight, and the charge. You attack for 4 with go again. Um, and that definitely used to be true pre-Dusk Till Dawn, that like those cards were felt very, very underbaked, like there was something missing. And then you would play Lumina and be like, okay, this all kind of makes sense. Lumina has always been a very, very strong card. um I I would say I do think the design of Boltyn has been held back by the existence of Courage of Bladehold. Um, I think I think Courage of Bladehold is the piece that maybe making LSS a little bit worried to give Boltyn like that extra big push instead of these little incremental ones. Just the strength of the combo and the relative ease of it, of setting up this 30 damage turn, is I think it's just breaching the territory of being just a really not fun play experience,
Mm-hmm.
especially to a brand new player. um, you know I love to get to explain Boltyn to new players, but also it's not always fun being like, okay, so here's how you're about to take 30 damage, and here's how little you can do about it,
Right.
to stop it from happening. Like I was fairly shocked with Hot Streak. Hot Streak was a very little push that has made the combo even stronger. Just being able to, it puts your opponent in a situation where previously they could think about, okay, like let's soul starve. Let's make sure you don't have enough soul to get these attacks to go again. But now my first 3 swings on my combo turn with Hot Streak all say, hey, well, if you block this, it's going to get go again anyway.
For
Unless
the
you're
whole turn.
yes, yeah. So I think that a lot of Bolton's design potential has unfortunately been, kind of held back by the existence of the combo, and the combo only really exists because of Courage of Bladehold.
Hmm.
So if I woke up tomorrow and saw, surprise Bandom restricted, Courage of Bladehold banned, because in the same way that like Berserk was banned. Berserk was banned, for multiple reasons, but it became even more obvious when we saw Savage Sash. So if I woke up tomorrow and saw that Courage of Bladehold was banned and I have to take that combo out of my deck, I would rejoice and I would be so happy. Because I think, a Majestic from Dusk Till Dawn, Spirit of War, doesn't see a lot of play,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that card likely maybe had a different text box in development, and then maybe they were like, oh, the Lumina combo, this card is far too strong, so they
Mm-hmm.
made it say only attack actions are affected by the on-hit effect that Spirit of War creates. So it barely even works in a Raiden deck,
Right.
which I think is really sad. So I think there is a bit of a fear about the combo decks. I mean, we see discourse that happens every now and then about Kano, and the existence of Kano as a combo deck, and the how that can feel uninteractive, and the debate over whether that is a good play experience. I think Boltyn is close to being there. Um, but ignoring the combo and just looking exclusively at Raiden, I think I would say Boltyn has, just at face value, one of the strongest hero abilities like in the game. Just turning all of your opponents' 3 block attack actions into 2 block attack actions, and their 2 block attack actions into 1 block attack actions. If you've charged this turn, as well as LSS has talked about how they're stepping away from Go Again being so accessible. While it's printed right there on Boltyn's text box, it's very easy to get. So I think Raiden isn't quite at that point where like one wrong card and it's over the edge. It's the combo that is a little scary in my opinion for the direction it might take Boltyn.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And it's actually really funny. We did not plan this, folks, but both of the things he just talked about actually fit into questions I wanted to ask him. So specifically on Spirit of War and to a lesser extent the sister card in that set, Beacon, I think something like that. It was the other 03 red M.
Beckoning Light.
Beckoning, not Beacon, Beckoning. Thank you. So both of those cards in a set that functionally wanted everything that was charged to be yellow, right, by and large.
Sure.
Why the hell were those cards, as M's, why were they 03s and not, they should, in my opinion, they should have either been 04 or should have been what they are, but yellow.
Sure. Yeah, I think...
So why?
I was very excited to see a Majestic charge card. We had, the bar was set so high with what a rare charge card can be in terms of Via the Vanguard. Via the Vanguard, absolutely. If it was printed nowadays, would probably be a Majestic.
Well, I think they needed it to be a rare for draft and to make limited work.
Right? I mean, it's such a great bomb in draft when you get that Via the Vanguard and can kind of build your deck around that card. But in terms of power level, Via the Vanguard, as I'd put it as a Majestic. So with Spirit of War and Beckoning Light, it was certainly a bit of a letdown. Spirit of War specifying that it needed to be attack action cards in order to create the on-hit courage, I think is really sad to read every time I read that card, and I'm like, maybe this is good in a Raiden deck. And then I'm like, well, my Raiden doesn't get the on-hit. And same with Beckoning Light. I think Beckoning Light was a card I tried to make work almost more than Spirit of War, especially in the Dromai matchup. Being able to charge, kill a dragon, and put that bolting blade back on top of your deck was a cool line that just didn't always work out. So I think that those Majestic, I really, really hope in Monarch 3 down the road, whenever that's happening, they give another stab at these Majestic charge cards, because there's so much cool design space that I think Spirit of War and Beckoning Light fell a little flat.
So the other one you hit on very, very eloquently was the combo potential with Courage Blade Hold, right? Sure. Now, I'm actually going to take it a slightly different way, in that what if instead of just banning Courage Blade Hold, they gave Boltyn something that was better, or maybe not better, but more enticing. Yes. And where I'm going with this is, like, if you look at Soulbond Resolve, the design space is really cool on that, but the card having temper and the fact that you can only do it twice kind of blows goats, right? So would it have been busted if Soulbond Resolve was essentially a Crown of Seeds to which you could charge on? Would that have been busted? And if that was the case, wouldn't you play that over Courage?
Yeah, I think creating an option that is more interesting than Courage of Blade Hold is probably, I would hope, is very, very easy. I think Soulbond Resolve is almost that. And creating something that is both more interesting and is just a reason to not play Courage of Blade Hold at all, I think is probably the best case scenario for pushing people away from that combo play style. I think that design space is probably very, very narrow, and is absolutely something I'd love to see. But I mean, I'm glad you said Crown of Seeds, because I don't think there's just about any effect that I could think of that'd be more tempting for that particular game plan than Courage of Blade Hold. But I think you bring up a good point that being saying, okay, we have Courage of Bladehold. What if instead of banning it, we design this more interesting card that kind of invalidates it at the same time, or not necessarily invalidates Courage of Bladehold, but invalidates it within the context of Boltyn.
Right, and then it's still available for the others. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And because a Dawnblade Dorinthea deck without Courage of Bladehold, at the very least in the sideboard, that card is such a strong part of Dorinthea's identity at this point, even though it's not a Dorinthea specialization. And I think I saw some Kassais playing around with it initially as well, see if they could get more value than Grains.
Well, they're playing that for blood on your hands.
Yes, right? Yeah.
So, which, to your point, is kind of busted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation that they find themselves in with Boltyn and with Courage of Bladehold. But I have a lot of faith in them to treat Boltyn well. I think they've done it well so far, other than those stinker Majestic charge cards. Yeah.
All right. So last question before we move to end is: do you think Stonks and Raiden are going up because of new Prism B? Prism 2 has been coming up in the meta, and you can still pop a Spectra with Raiden for 0.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good.
Feels
so
good.
There's that, and we have a new Illusionist on the horizon. Are Raiden stonks going up, or do you still need to do the wide thing in order to be able to survive?
Just looking at Illusionist and Assassin in terms of just the class, not thinking about the Mystic and the hero abilities of our new heroes coming up. Illusionist and Assassin, barring Dromai, have historically been quite good matchups for Boltyn. During Prism's dominance, Prism 1, way back in the day, before Dusk Till Dawn was even a thing, Boltyn had a chance into that deck purely because of the block out, kill an aura pass, and it got a little bit better with Dynasty and getting Spirit of Irene and those that instant speed Lumina. So barring Dromai, Boltyn's history into the Illusionist class has been quite good, and seeing the direction that now thinking of the direction that this Mystic Illusionist is looking to go into with lots of ward. No more Spectra, but I'm sure we'll see Shimmers and Hazebending played in that deck.
Oh yeah.
In most versions of it. I think Boltyn presents some interesting breakpoints that can make it hard to protect ward. You see that a lot with playing into Prism 2. A take flight for 4 while they have an angel on the board that they want to protect is really annoying for them to block. Same with a Raiden for 4 while they have an angel they want to protect. Really annoying for them to block. So I foresee
you could just take out the angel.
Yeah, true. You very much could. But you attack them and you kind of invite them to make the wrong choice, which I think is really fun. So I expect a similar play space going into the Enigma matchup, and I think just based off what we've seen so far, trying to play combo into a hero that can just be like, sure, I'll set up lots of ward on my board and prevent 20 damage of your combo before I even have to block. I think it sounds like a bit of a scary prospect. Yeah. And I feel a similar way about the Assassin matchup. Azuri and Boltyn, that matchup is one of my favorite matchups to play in the game. I think it's so interesting. It interacts with that design space I talked about so much about, attack reactions and defense reactions. Both decks like to play with those. One of my favorite matchups to play in the game. And looking at New, a character that cares about, if my opponent has blue cards. And doesn't run a lot of blue cards. Maybe in the Boltyn matchup, they just don't have a hero ability. Feeling just based off that, already feeling somewhat positive about the new matchup.
But you didn't see the new spoiler card today, where New can make all cards. She has a Majestic that can drop down, and she can play all the yellows for free instead.
Right, the attack reaction, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so, yeah. That card, that's a little bit of a, oh, okay, so they're gonna have some stuff that still interacts with us.
To be clear to everyone out there, I am joking. That's at least not a thing yet. It might be. I
Yeah,
don't know. But
we saw something that doesn't care, that the reaction that doesn't care about blues, and that's still a little scary. But my cards aren't terribly powerful just by themselves anyway. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to both of those. The Zen, yeah, Zen. That matchup is a bit of a question mark for me. Katsu at the moment, I think, is one of Boltyn's scarier matchups.
Makes
One of the
sense.
matchups where I always bring combo because I don't think Raiden can do it faster than they can, do all their goodness. So sometimes you just play combo and hope you can do it before they, threaten you with a, double dishonor for Bonds of Ancestry line. And so Zen, we haven't seen what sort of disruption he has available in his toolkit. I mean, he could just run the Dishonor line himself, though he'd have to get a little bit luckier than Gatsu has to do it. Um,
I
so a
I
bit of a
think
question
I
mark
think
there.
Zen looks more like Phi to me.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so if Zen goes a little bit more in the direction of Phi, I feel okay about that. But if he has, if they print some cool Majestics that give him, a little bit of disruption or put a little bit more of a timer on you, then that might make me a little bit more nervous. But ultimately, I think like, going into the Part the Mistveil, constructed format, with what we've seen so far, I definitely don't think Boltyn is getting any worse. Um,
Okay.
and
That's
I
a
think
that's a
that
good
is
statement. Yeah.
I think that is a great place to be as a Boltyn player. That your hero isn't getting any worse. And
I
I
mean,
think
fair,
that's a
fair
great.
enough.
I think that's a great place to be for any hero. That's where everyone wants to be at the bare minimum. But if these heroes like Enigma and Nu and Zen, he ends up end up being popular. I'm expecting Enigma and Nu at the very least to be popular.
Oh yeah.
And just based off what I see in Discord and the reaction to spoilers and such. So if those matchups end up being quite good, I'm probably going to get pretty excited to play Boltyn, even more than I already am excited for Boltyn. Though the calling Portland, when that finally comes, I think will be after whatever set releases
Mhm.
after Mistveil. So um, so I can't get my hopes too high about Boltyn being in a great place because then they might print something that just
It'll
totally.
be the all Arcane set, and then you're
Yeah,
boned.
yeah, yeah. All Arcane with no blues
Yeah.
is a little sad. Yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. And actually, that was a good shout out that I did not have planned, but thank you. That's a great shout out to the Calling Portland coming in November. It's never too early to buy your plane tickets, kids. Come
So
visit
excited.
us. It'll be a great time. We're working
Yes.
on some other special events. Gongai's looking to have a event on Thursday, but more
Heck yeah.
info coming.
Yeah.
So, Spencer, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely.
Lining your schedule. I always appreciate when folks are very easy to schedule with, and you were. So thank you so
I
much.
do my best. Yeah. Yeah. I had to, when I saw you reach out, I was like, okay, my wife has a baby on the way, probably within the next 20 days. And I was like, please, 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 my upcoming son, do not do not throw a wrench in this because I would be very, very excited to do that. So, we're at the very end and we've made it this far. So I think we're in the clear.
So when you see Spencer at Calling Portland and he has big bags under his eyes, just give him a fist bump and
Yeah,
and know why.
I did get the thumbs up from our local judge that that if I were to make it to nationals with a newborn baby, as long as the tournament organizer approves it and the baby isn't a disruption,
You can play in
having
the
him on my
carrier.
chest while I'm playing, like as long as he's not throwing up on everyone's cards or anything, I might get the all clear. But I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and I actually that's the other reason I appreciate it. I wasn't going to out you, but you outed yourself. So fair enough. There you go.
You got it.
All right. Well, any shout outs you want to give before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, the love to shout out my number one my testing partner. I guess you could call her my wife. Her name is Tilly. If you play in the Portland area, you would probably know her as the most pregnant person at all the armories lately. She is 9 months pregnant and still going to armories. She even wants to make pre-release happen, and that's like a week before our due date. But I mean, if it's up to her. So she has been just a one of the primary reasons that I still play this game, and get to experience it with her and go to armories with her and talk to talk to her about Flesh and Blood. I'm very, very fortunate to have that, and very and also a very important part of my life outside of Flesh and Blood too. Can't forget that.
Just a little bit. So
yeah.
if you go into labor at a pre-release event, do they have to send you a gold foil? That's the question.
I have told her, like, if you went into labor at pre-release, we would definitely get on the LSS website.
No, that's probably a true statement.
That would be included, and if it wouldn't be included, well, then I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I wouldn't want to make the claim that the first person to go into labor at a Flesh and Blood event, but I feel like I might be able to make that claim if that happens. Or she might be able to make that claim if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, you had no part in it. That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, you had a little part in it, but that was a long time ago. So
yeah. Other than that, I love our local judge, Scott, and I can barely remember his last name at the moment. Scott. I'm so sorry.
Scott W is how he's known anyway.
Scott W. Yeah, we just know, Scott, that you are so appreciated in the PDX community, and talking directly to LSS, get him to every single event, and pay him all the money in the world to be there because he is such a wonderful judge, and just a wonderful member of our community. So thank you, Scott. But yeah, I think that's just about that's what my heart's saying to shout out right now. All
right. Well, how about your LGS, your local game store? You said you go there.
Yes, yeah. I play the most often at the Portland Game Store, just and play there just about every we'd It is a awesome community. If you're in the PDX area and have the time on Monday nights to come to PGS, we'd love to have you. We have regularly 12 to 20 person armories, and it's pretty awesome. A great environment there. Yeah, PGS is awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually haven't been to PGS since the ownership change, which is a while ago now. But I will try to get out there. But like you, I'm also a dad, and Mondays are also my worst day of work. So
sure. Yeah. Can't blame you for that.
All right, my friend. Well, again, thank you for using your Thursday evening to talk Boltyn about us. I'm super excited about this, and I actually pulled out my deck my Boltyn deck, just to be clear, pulled out my Boltyn deck about an hour and a half ago, and I was looking at the shinies I need to get to be ready for the drop. So
yeah, get that cold foil Spirit, get that cold foil Raiden, get those extended art Luminas, and one day I'll get my cold or gold foil Snappies and get the full set.
Cold foil Snappies. Oh man, that's shooting for the stars. Look at you.
Yeah.
You've got a kid to feed. Come on now.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, again, we're going to go and sunset this, but I really do appreciate you. This was a really fun chat, and you got to say it with me, buddy. Go Commando.
Go Commando. All right.